1 Peter chapter 4 is the fourth chapter of the First Epistle of Peter in the New Testament of the Christian Bible. The author identifies himself as Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, and the epistle is traditionally attributed to Peter the apostle. Text. Structure. Verse 6. For this reason the gospel was preached also to those who are dead, that they might be judged according to men in the flesh, but live according to God in the Spirit. By the gospel is meant the good news of the incarnation, sufferings, and death of Christ, and salvation by him, and includes all the doctrines of grace, as of pardon, righteousness, and eternal life, and by its being preached is meant the publishing of it openly, freely, and boldly, with faithfulness and consistency. Dead is not in a figurative sense, but dead in trespasses and sins, though this is the case of all mankind, and of God's elect, in a state of nature, whether Jews or Gentiles. The gospel is preached to such, as it is ordered to be preached to all nations, to every creature, and is the means of quickening dead sinners. And this follows upon it, that such as receive it are judged and condemned by men, and live spiritually here, according to the will of God, and in eternal life hereafter. But the word dead is used in the same sense as in the preceding verse, where it manifestly signifies such who had been alive, but were now dead in a natural sense, whom Christ would judge as well as those that will be found alive when he comes. Wherefore the gospel has been preached also to them that are already dead, as well as to those who are now alive. And by these are meant, not the dead, whose souls are in hell, for to them, there, the gospel never was, nor never will be preached, nor they saved, as Origen, and his followers, have vainly thought, nor the deceased patriarchs, before the coming of Christ, whose souls, by the papists, are said to be in limbus, whither Christ, they say, went upon his death, and preached to them, and delivered them, but these never were in any such place, but in peace and rest. Nor did Christ, in his human soul, descend thither, but went to paradise, nor the dead in general, before the apostles' writing of this epistle. For though the gospel had been preached from the beginning, from the fall of Adam, to certain persons, and at certain periods of time, yet not to all the individuals of mankind who were then dead, especially in the Gentile world, nor the Old Testament saints in general, who are now dead, though they had the gospel preached to them in types and figures, in promises and prophecies, nor the men in the times of Noah, to whom the gospel was preached by him, and who, some of them, as supposed, though they were judged and punished in their bodies in the view of men, being drowned in the waters of the flood, yet repenting and believing upon Noah's preaching to them, they live in their spirits in eternal life, according to the free mercy and grace of God. But though the gospel was preached to them, yet they remained disobedient to it, even all of them, but Noah's family, for anything that appears, and are styled the world of the ungodly, and are now spirits in the prison of hell, and therefore cannot be said to live according to God in the Spirit, but such are intended, to whom the gospel had been preached, and to whom it had been effectual unto salvation, who had received it in the love of it, had sincerely professed it, and had suffered for it even death itself. Such are designed who had suffered in the flesh, or were dead in their bodies, who either were dead in the Lord, or especially had suffered death for his sake, as Stephen and others. And this, with what follows, is mentioned with a general view to encourage the saints to patient suffering for Christ, to fortify them against the ill opinion and judgment the world have formed of them, and to assure them that Christ will judge his people, both quick and dead, and avenge their cause, since the gospel has been preached to one as well as to another, and attended with the same power. Meaning, either that such persons that receive and profess the gospel, and suffer for it, are judged according to the judgment of men that are in the flesh, in an unregenerated state, that is, carnal men, to be a strange and unaccountable sort of people, as in 1 Peter chapter 4, to receive such a strange set of notions, so strenuously to contend for them, and so constantly to abide by them, and to debar themselves of so many pleasures of life, and expose themselves to so much reproach and shame, to such dangers, and even to death itself, while they are judged to be by these men enthusiasts, madmen and fools, and at other times to be knaves and villains, hypocrites and deceivers. And this is the common effect of the gospel being preached and coming with power to any. See 1 Corinthians chapter 4:3, or the sense is, that such persons, according to men, or in their apprehensions, are judged of God, or have the judgments of God inflicted on them in their flesh, in their bodies, for some sins of theirs, and therefore they suffer what they do in the flesh, vengeance pursuing them, being ignorant that when they are judged, as they reckon it, they are only chastened by the Lord in a fatherly way, that they might not be eternally condemned with the world. 1 Corinthians chapter 11:32, or else to complete the sense, for all may be taken into it. These persons, who were formerly alive, but now dead, and had embraced and professed the gospel preached to them, were judged and condemned, and put to death in the flesh, according to the will of wicked men, and which was all that they were capable of. Though this was their case, though they were thus judged, censured, and condemned, yet while they were here on earth, the gospel preached to them had such an effect upon them, as to cause them to live spiritually, to live by faith on Christ, to live a life of holiness from Him, and communion with Him, and to live according to the will of God, in righteousness and true holiness. And now, though dead in their bodies, they live in their spirits or souls in eternal life of comfort, peace, pleasure, and happiness with God, according to His eternal purpose, unchangeable covenant, promise, grace, and love.